We're going to be laughing. Hello and welcome to Live at 12:45. I'm Kristen Bomas, and joining me today is Valentina Moretti. And today we are going to talk about the fact that it is Hispanic Heritage Month. So we are going to celebrate from September 15th to October 15th the influence of the Hispanics in the United States. So we had a discussion on Facebook, and one of the people discussing, Karen, she asked, what is Hispanic, right? So I'm going to just give you kind of a bit of a formal, quasi-formal definition. It's a term that we use in this country to identify all Spanish-speaking people with Latin descent. Okay, and so that connotes that we're also talking about the culture, the language, the family, the people, and its history. So today we're going to take a few minutes to talk about the influence of the Hispanics in our country and what they bring to the table for all of us. Thank you for joining us, Bentley. So tell us a little bit about what your thought is. Being Hispanic, what do you see as part of the culture that you bring to this country?
Yes, we all come from different backgrounds in life. Here in the United States, in South America, in Europe, it doesn't matter. But something that brings us together, I think, from the Latin community, it's, I think, essentially three things. Family, we're very family oriented. We have a very tight community into our families. And I was telling you that we have these grandparents, 3 generations that live under the same roof, and if not in the same roof, very close to each other. And for the families here in the United States that also their parents live in another country, they come and they can stay for long periods of time. So it's like they're living with us anyways.
Yeah. As an American, right? So what's interesting is that we have I wrote the stat down, like, what is it? 19% of Americans are Latino, right?
We're Latinos.
And so
that is 50 million people from Latin America or Hispanics living in the U.S. Venezuela only have around 30 million.
That to me is amazing.
So we have a whole country living inside the U.S.
Exactly. Which also gives you a feel for how big our country is and the diversity. Frankie, thank you so much for joining us. How wonderful. We're talking about it being Hispanic Heritage Month. So what's really, and there's Melissa, hey. So as what we're looking at is Venezuela and its 30 million can fit not only inside America,
Florida,
but in Florida, right? But then we can add another 20 million Latin people to that population here in the United States. So as an American, one of the things that you bring is family, and you just said, 3 generations of family, if not in the same household, in the same immediate vicinity. And I think everybody's heard me talk about family in America. Our marriages break down, our family becomes very fragmented, our culture is very fragmented right now. And so it is a joy for me to think about the fact that the Hispanic Heritage Month, we can actually look at your family structure, look at the Latin structure, look at what it brings to us. Can we learn as Americans how to reunite and to come back together as a family and bring great value to that? There's a beautiful heritage that comes in that alone.
Yes,
I would think
absolutely.
that you pass down tradition,
and
you learn much more about
without family bonds comes the food, which I think it's second aspect I wanted to say. I personally bring, and I think the whole Hispanic culture brings into the United States, is the food. America is based now on those American Hispanic Latin food, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm not talking only Mexican tacos and
no,
the whole thing.
The paella, is that my
paella?
Yeah, yes. So we're all talking about the good stuff, and I love mine is the pork lechon, right? Everybody has their favorite foods, right? So even if we say them wrong, I must say, but
tastes the same.
So we do gather around food. I think most cultures gather around food, right? And Americans clearly gather around food, which is why we are an obese nation. So here we bring in the Latin culture and how they bring family and intimacy to the table, literally. And again, how can we as Americans learn from the Latin culture to bring that kind of unity and bonding back into our lives at not only a family level, but at a community level?
Yes. Because I want to say something. So we have the family, and then we have the food around that family. And then, because we are doing those things together, then comes the entertainment. That comes the music. That comes the vibrant that someone said earlier.
Yes.
That and then it's a party almost, right? It's the gathering. So the cousins comes, the friends of the nephews come. So it's 20 people at the same time, and it was just having lunch or having dinner a Saturday night.
How many times do we do that as an American? Right? We don't really see our families stay close together. First of all, more often than not in this country, we move all over the country. And so we certainly don't gather spontaneously and then roll into great music and dance and singing and playfulness. There's a real bonding element that comes with that. In fact, lately I've even spoken about how we used to watch TV shows as a family, right? We don't do that as Americans anymore, but in the Latin culture, there is more of that.
Yes, it is.
So we're talking a lot about here, and I'm going to bring up a couple other things too, but think of what we're talking about here. We're talking about an influence of the Latin culture. They are strongest in California, Texas, and Florida. But as a people, and they are all American, yet as a people and as a culture, they bring to us a richness that we have lost in our lives. So in this month of honoring the Hispanic heritage, let's look within ourselves and ask, what happened to our family dynamic? What happened to that playfulness and that love that we shared with our families? And what about our own language? Are we really using it to speak and to bond us together? Or do we, I always say that we speak American, and people laugh at me and they say, no, we speak English. But wait a minute, don't the English speak English, and isn't their language different than ours? And so, the Latinos don't hesitate to notice the difference in dialect, right?
Oh, there are so many in the same country.
Right.
We speak differently, and it's
why
funny.
do we? Yes, and it's in the diversity that you embrace the unity.
Correct.
And that's what we need to get back to, I think, in this country, is embracing the diversity, not only as we look at the Hispanic heritage, but as we look at all of the differences in Americans, period, because all of us came from a different cultural background. Every single one of us. None of us was born and raised here unless you're Native Indian, and even then, and it breaks my heart, it has been infiltrated by all these other cultures, and so they lost the purity of the beauty of their culture. And so as we look at Hispanic Heritage Month, I want us all hopefully to not just think about the culture you bring, the music, the dance, the soap operas, right? Everybody knows the soap operas.
Yes.
And the language, it's such a graceful language. But how can you teach us? And think about it. We have so much to learn from the very culture that has come into our culture and has embraced our culture. And you're going to learn a lot more about that as we move from this Facebook Live. Valentina and I are going to put together a podcast where we talk much more personally and openly about what it's like for her to have left Venezuela and brought her whole family here to America to raise them with her husband, and what she left behind and what she gained, and what it's like for me as a very, very dear friend. She's one of my very best friends. So as we look at that unity, what I've learned, in that, from her as a woman and her culture and her Hispanic heritage. And so we're going to talk a lot more intimately and openly about that on the podcast, which will be available by Thursday morning, Wednesday afternoon on Facebook for all of you to share with us. And I hope you'll all either watch us here or go to the YouTube channel and see more about what it's like to be Hispanic in this country and to share two cultures and diversify your own self to expand who you are.
Absolutely.
She says it so much better than I do too, I must say.
I'll say it later.
So, okay, I want to make sure, so I'm going to look at notes because there were a few things I know what it was. I don't even have to look at my notes. There's a beautiful piece about the Latinos that I think we would be remiss if we didn't address, and that is the resilience.
Oh, yes.
And how proud they are as a people. And I want to say that out loud as we go into this month of celebration of our Hispanic people, because I think that we all know that the Hispanics that are a part of our culture have trauma in their terrible trauma and tragedy in their background. They were defined by the Spaniards taking over areas and more. So much more, and so they're built upon a foundation of trauma and tragedy, true tragedy, and the resilience that they have shown. And I'm sitting next to Valentina, who came from Venezuela, and I'm sure many of you know the tragic situation of Venezuela, and it really breaks my heart. And so you see that out of that tragedy, not only as a nation but as individual people, what they had to suffer and how they keep bouncing back, and they hold.
Always will, always do. Always
yes,
will. It's amazing. It's there. No one taught them to do that, but still they get up and they will do it again tomorrow and the next day and the next day.
There's a line that I've heard shared, and it's, will you do what it takes to get up and feed the children? And that doesn't mean literally your own children. It means in general, will you always do what it takes to get up the next day and feed the children? And I think your culture, the Latin culture, has brought that to us.
That
yes.
very well.
Yes.
I agree with you.
And part of that is your family, your community, that bond that you share that gives that true desire to forge forth as a people to make sure that the children are fed and okay, and that everybody continues to prosper and go forward. So I really offer to each and every one of you a fantastic month until October 15th. And may each of you make sure that you think about every Latin person that you meet, who you meet, and every Latin person who you run across in business, social, any interaction whatsoever. And think about what that culture brings to our life here in America. And thank them for all they bring. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
I am so grateful for you in my life, and thank you for joining me on Facebook Live. Have a wonderful day. Please make sure you join us Thursday. Our question there will be, do you feel appreciated? And Bambi is going to join us in the background. Do you feel appreciated at home or at work? And at work, right? You want to feel appreciated. So please join us on Kristen Bomas PA on Facebook and be a part of that discussion, because that is what we build Facebook Live on. So join us for live at 12:45 Thursday to talk about your appreciation. And please feel free to join us on YouTube, where you're going to see Valentina and I talk much more intimately about being a Hispanic. Latin American, a Hispanic American.
Immigrants,
so thank you again. I wish you a very wonderful day.